Our last video, we took care of our carburetor, got it where it needs to be, ready to go on a freed up motor, which we do not have on this bike. It is locked up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tank off and take the battery out. Battery looks new, but it's about halfway full, so we're going to do that. And so give us a little access to this motor, and we'll try to do a little investigating to see if it's going to be worth trying to work with this. I'm just kind of curious that why they had these pipes pulled off the way they do. It's not encouraging, but if something run at one point in time, it can run again. It's just how much money and time you want to put into it. So, but we're going to tinker around with this and see if we can get this motor freed up. Took that tank off to help us get a little better access there, and the next thing I've done was took out the spark plugs. I don't know if you can get that to focus or not, but anyway, they're in good shape, and they've been run, so it's not like somebody put in new spark plugs and never fired it. And sorry about that, if I can get somewhere where it's got. There we go. So they're in good shape. So that leads me to believe that our motor is in good shape and probably has just been sitting and either collected moisture from the carburetor not being on there. That would be my bet. It could have gotten some moisture in through where the exhaust pipes are not attached. The straight culprit would be that where the carburetor was not on there. So what we can do now is take our spark plug holes, and you can either use, if you want to go buy some Marvel mystery oil would work perfectly. Even a diluted or even straight, I guess you could do. Automatic transmission fluid would work in there to get that motor loosened up, but we're going to use what everybody has in their shop, WD-40. It is a solvent as well as a lubricant, so we're just going to right down in that. Spray enough in there. I'm going to go back and spray a little bit more when we're kind of hard to do with no. Oop. Boy, oh boy, there's some kind of trash right there that the vacuum cleaner did not get. I definitely do not want that down in there. I don't know what that was. When I took before I took those plugs out, I'd run the shop vac around there, but apparently missed something. Might have something come off of that spark plug. All right, so we're going to spray this pretty good in there, and we're going to let it set for about 3 hours or so, since it's WD-40. If you're using the Marvel mystery oil or transmission fluid mixture, you'd want to let it set at least overnight. But I think this motor is in real good shape. I'm assuming just by looking at those spark plugs. But you don't want to go wailing on this thing. If it was a kickstart or something like that, you don't want to go, right off the bat. We want to work it through a little bit. And with this particular motor, we're going to use its own transmission to work it back and forth a little bit. But I'll show you some other ways that we can loosen it up too. But let's let this sit for a while and come back to it. Our WD-40 has been in our cylinder heads almost 24 hours. We put it in, well, I guess it's over 24 hours, night before last. So we've got that solution in there. And I told you I'd give you 3 different ways of breaking this motor loose. The first one we're going to start with is the safest for your entire motorcycle, and that is to put your motorcycle in its highest gear. So, 4th gear would be your highest gear. And what that will do, that will engage your entire crankshaft system all the way back through the chain or shaft, the prop, drive shaft. It will engage this whole system, and that will equal pressure or torque all the way through. And what you want to do once you do that, get it in gear, set on it, because if you don't, it's just going to drag the rear wheel, and start working that bike back and forth a little bit at a time, back and forth, because what's happened is your rings and the inside of your motor have rusted together, and you've given your fluid, your transmission mix or your Marvel Mystery Oil, or in our case WD-40, whatever you put in there, you've given it enough time to soak in. Now you're just wanting to create just little cracks in that rust in there to start freeing that up and working it back and forth. And once you get that motor worked back and forth, you'll be able to feel when it's going a long way. And when it's going a long way, moving back and forth, you're ready to start looking towards the starter. Now we're talking about starter. The second way that you can break a motor loose is by using the starter. Now the starter's, a powerful little motor right there in the front. Get where you can see without making you sick moving her all around. That little round area right there is your starter, and it's a pretty powerful, torquey motor. I mean, it turns this entire motor over to get started. Now you can, put your bike back in neutral, or hold your clutch in. It's safer to put it in neutral, and you don't want to wail on your starter. Just bump it, bump. And if it doesn't, sound like it's moving a little bit, give up on the starter deal, because you can break a tooth off, or if you've got some kind of internal problem with that motor that's due to something, a mechanical failure, instead of just sitting, you can ruin the starter and cause some more damage. And the last thing that you want to try is going directly to the crankshaft. Taking this outside piece off, you're going to lose some oil, and right around the inside of your stator, that copper winder in there, there'll be 2 bolts. One's on the very end, and you got a larger bolt. You want to get, you're going to have to go buy a socket to fit it. Most socket sets don't have anything that large. And get a breaker bar or something and work that back and forth very, very lightly. Don't stand on it. Don't hit it with a hammer, because you definitely don't want to break the end of that off and have to replace that. And usually if it gets down to where you're going to have to do that, you're going to wind up probably rebuilding your motor anyway. If the first 2 don't do what you want it to do, free that motor up. Because if those first 2 that we talked about, rocking it back and forth or using the starter, those are the 2 that's going to free this motor up to where you can still use it. And what I mean by that's where you can put your carb back on it, your plugs back in it, and start it. Change your oil several times or whatever, and have it roadworthy. Now, if you have to use that, turning the crankshaft down there, you're probably going to have to rebuild your motor. Now, once you got this broke loose, and we're going to try ours in just a minute, I'm going to hook a battery boost up to this, because usually I want to have a lot of torque through this once I get this broke loose and use the starter. So let's go ahead and do that now before I get too far into this. Let me try to get this broke loose, and then we'll see if we can't turn it over a few times with the starter. We've got our battery charger hooked up, and we got some electrical problems with this, so we've had to just straight wire straight into our starter switch to our starter. So after we get this motor freed up, then we'll have to go into the electrical system on this bike too. So hopefully we can get a little bit of action with the starter. All right. Okay, we got a little bit of scrubbing noise there, but that's okay. We need to get some oil up on it. But now our motor is freed up. Let me go ahead and cut this charger off. What we done just went straight to the battery cables there with our charger. All right, now we got our motor freed up. So the next thing we need to do, and I'm not going to show you how to do that, that'll be in a different video. We want to see how healthy this motor is, so we need to do a compression test. And we'll do the compression test next. But as far as the motor being freed up, we've got that done. Now we've got a good carburetor. We've got, we're going to assume that we've got good compression, because I really think we do. Now we need to tie into the electrical system, get the electrical system straightened out, and then we'll do the brakes, get the brakes on this, and then the rest of it's just being pretty. So that's how you free up a motorcycle. That's how you free up a seized motorcycle motor. That's your 3 ways to do that. All right, thank you guys for watching.